So I was today years old when I learned that kangaroos are kind of wild. Like I always thought they were just cute little, animals that exist in Australia or whatever, but they will mess you up. Mr. Soap and Clay got obsessed with this just scrolling on shorts or whatever, all of these crazy kangaroo videos where they're like fighting people, or like banging on glass windows and they're just standing upright and they have this like beastly chest and everything. They look like people, but with like a rodent body, like rodents of unusual size body. It's wild. It's super crazy. I don't know. I have no idea what is going on with kangaroos, but this picture right here, actually, the kidlets decided at some point several years ago that they definitely needed to print this out and frame it for Mr. Soap and Clay. And we never really understood the reference until we started watching these videos. And now this picture, when we realize that it's real, is way more scary and weird than it was before. That's it. This has nothing to do with kangaroo, soap or anything, because that's also weird. But, I just wanted to share that this is an adventure. And we have a framed picture of, I think, what is probably a real kangaroo in the background today for funsies. Yes, we're not doing kangaroo milk soap. We're doing coconut milk soap, and it gets crazy. So stick around for all of that. And I'm going to tell you more about all of that in just a minute. But before I do, hello, I am Mrs. Soap and Clay. Let's make stuff. Just like the street. How's it going, Sudsers? Welcome back to the channel. You are at Soap and Clay, where we make all the soapy things. And you are here for another round of milk soapy things. And we are going to be playing with coconut milk in a different way. Now, when I did the FAQ about regular milks and everything and what you should look out for, how you should incorporate it into your lye solution, all of the jazz, I thought about this one. And I did mention that I did not have time within the schedule and everything because I had to take, a little break or whatever to get some of this footage out, some things that I'd filmed. And some sudsers said they wanted to see it anyway. So what we're going to be seeing today is going to be coconut milk, but we're going to talk more about when you should probably incorporate milks, and that's especially going to be true of the type of coconut milk that you are using. In the most recent video that I did, I used coconut milk in the dried form, and so that's going to be very similar to the carton coconut milk that you find within the grocery store, right? It's going to primarily be water. But what happens when you use coconut milk from a can? Is it any different? And the answer to that is yes, it is very different. This is a very crazy process. Wait until you see the lye solution and watch what I ultimately do with it. So if you have ever worked with coconut milk from a can, you can reference this and know that probably, maybe, it'll be fine. I don't know. We're going to go make the soap. We're going to test the soap. We're going to do all the things, and we can talk more about it, there. Okay, we are doing some coconut milk soap directly from a can. We are going to be talking about all of the different types of, coconut milks that can be found realistically. And this is one that I'm going to be using here. Coconut milk from a can is a little bit different. And by a little bit, I mean kind of a lot, as opposed to the milk that you would do either via powdered form, so adding water, or what you would find in your carton, which is a lot of water. And so the biggest difference with this is the canned coconut milk is going to contain a lot more fat content than what you're going to get from the diluted versions that you would get from a carton or making it yourself. Also, pretty significantly more fat than what you would get from just a coconut itself. Like in and of itself, when you're just cracking it open and taking the milk out of there, there's lots more fat as well. Look at that. It says 17% of the daily value, 13 grams of fat within a third a cup serving. Now compare that to a serving of vitamin D milk, which is about 3 to 4% fat, right? So that's quite a bit different. And this is ultimately coming down to, like, I don't know, something like 20 to 40% overall of maybe maybe not. Let's say like 15 to 25% of fat that's going to be within the coconut milk as opposed to your vitamin D milk, as well as opposed to your coconut milk that you're going to get from a carton, or again, make it from the powdered variety. So what we're talking about, what we're going to be dealing with within all of this is going to be a higher amount of superfat. This particular recipe, just like all the recipes that I've done for this test, for all of the milk soaps, we are maintaining the exact same oils and superfat within all of this, as well as the amount of water slash liquid that's added to everything, so we can test them all against each other and see which milk reigns supreme. Now, so we are dealing with 2.4 times the water to lye, milk to lye, as you can, as the case is here. And as you can see, this gets immediately dark. That's so dark, but see how it's still very fluid. Yeah, that's awesome. I love that for me. So I'm going to finish stirring this up, even though it is very dark, and let that start cooling off a little bit while I prepare my oils, and we can get to the making of all of the things. Now, you can't quite tell from that image there, but it is starting to thicken up a little bit. And I will show you exactly what I mean by that once we get to that point. Now, when we were talking about the FAQ with the differences between goat's milk and cow's milk and almond milk and coconut milk, and okay, do you see that? It won't even come out of the light container. It's not happening. That's not a thing. So I am banging and just trying to get that big, yep, there's just one big puck. Just a giant puck of stuff there. That is crazy. What is that? Apologize for the camera bouncing too, by the way. I set my camera up at a weird place on this. But what is that? That is terrifying, I think, for most soap makers. The answer to that is terrifying. If you were to see that within your, soaps or whatever, within your lye solution, you would probably throw out your lye solution. And a lot of people actually did comment on these videos, and they did say that they had a weird experience with their coconut milk, and it became really, really solid or gelatinous, and they just threw out the lye solution. They didn't want to mess with it. So I'm like, well, let's mess with it. Let's put it in. So I've mixed it in really well, and I'm just going to let it sit there while I continue to get everything else ready for this soap to see what it does, not being stirred, not being mixed, not being blended, just what it's going to do within the oils that exist for the rest of this batch, and see if we can have, something that's manageable. So I'm going to, again, prep everything else before we get back to our very weird lye solution. So I went ahead and did a side angle on all of this too while I was prepping everything and getting it all ready. And as you can see, we do have some settling going on. So what that's going to be at the bottom is primarily the stearic acid that is separating out as it is becoming soap. So one of the big benefits that you're going to get from coconut milk is that it is very high in saturated fats. And for soap making, that's a really good thing. Now, what are saturated fats as opposed to, the unsaturated or the monounsaturated, et cetera, and so forth? Well, those are going to be double bonds between carbons. And so those are going to be your more solid fats. And so that's going to be your palmitics, your stearics, your, I think, myristeric, and there's one other. I forget. But anyway, so what that's going to do is it's going to contribute to bar hardness first and foremost, but it's also going to help create a really stable lather that holds up on itself. So what you should see is a nice foamy lather that's not going to be drying, as opposed to, some of your other acids that have longer fatty acid chains or shorter fatty acid chains. This is a medium fatty acid chain that's, again, going to be a very stabilizing force within your soap, and it's going to be included essentially as a superfat. Kind of. Now, this entire batch was soaped at, I think 3 to 5%. I'm not 100% sure on the superfat. So, very small superfat. So, this is going to increase the superfat by quite a bit with the extra inclusion of this particular coconut milk. Is that a big deal? No, it's going to be just fine within all of that because we love, a highly superfatted bar. Now, I did, again, apologies for the camera shakes. I'm very distracted by that. I hope you guys are not, and you can forgive me. But with all of this, I did continue to just soap this hot, right? I took out the, thing and checked everything, and it was a reasonably high amount or a high temperature. Normally for something like this, I would cool it down to room temperature. I room temperature soap all of my soaps for the most part, but I wanted to lean into in this case the actual heat transfer method to a point to see if the higher temperatures would really help break down all of essentially what formed in that lye solution, which was soap. So some of that lye solution started interacting with the fatty acid molecules that exist within the coconut milk, and we had a nice big thick just kind of mess of soap. So does that mean that all of the lye has been consumed? No, because the lye was weighed out according to, 38 ounces of oils. And we did not have 38 ounces of oils in 12 ounces of coconut milk. You know what I mean? So the lye still exists within all of that. And as I have said before, if you just put your lye solution into your fatty acids and just leave it alone, eventually it'll become soap. Seriously, it will just become soap. And so I'm not worried about it having all been consumed and it's not going to turn into soap with all this process. But I did want to show you that to show you like a real, life example. We're going to see if this is in fact true or it's just Mrs. Soap and Clay saying weird things. Now, I did overmix this and I did make everything at a high temperature. So I'm dealing with some problems here. It's thick soap batter. I hate it. It's like soap on a stick in some cases within the actual Pyrex that's left over there, and that's not fun. So I would suggest probably, because again, I used the heat to break down that soap mass that had existed within the lye solution so it would incorporate easier within the rest of the oils. And so I was going to be dealing with thick soap batter regardless. And so I would say that I should have stirred it not as long, with the immersion stick, or you can soap it by putting the coconut milk into your actual oils or within your traced batter if you're going to be using canned coconut. I do recommend that is going to be the best route as opposed to putting it within the lye solution, just to ensure that you have plenty of time to make sure that you have everything else in your soaps and you're not having to deal with any of this. Because if you don't get all of this pressed down really well into the cavities, you're going to end up with really big pockets of places where soap did not show up. And because this has added saturated fats, these bars are going to be harder right off of the jump. And so you've seen me do a million times on the channel, just taking piece of like the end piece and filling in little holes that may exist within soaps or whatever, and it's no big deal. That's not really going to be the case for this particular soap. However, because we are dealing with, again, a lot of extra, a lot of hard bars. And so even 24 hours later, I would expect these to be really too firm to be able to kind of manipulate this and fix all of the holes. So I'm going to show you exactly what I mean, in a minute. And so this will be just left out on the counter. We are not going to C-pop or gel this because it is already a very, very hot soap batter. And we're going to see what we are working with about 24 hours after it is poured. Okay, so here we are, as I said, about 24 hours later, and as I am pulling these out, pay attention to the molds themselves. These molds are from Brambleberry, and I hate them. They're like so freaking thick that usually the soaps have to stay in there for a couple extra days if I want to get them out and ensure that the top is not sticking to the actual inside of each of the cavities, or put them in the freezer. And so for that reason, I really do prefer not using these tray molds at all. But 24 hours later, that's all coming out pretty clean. And that's not usually the case with these molds for me. We do have a little bit of sticking, as you can see with those two there, but the rest of them, the edges and everything, they're not staying in the mold. It's releasing very well. This is what I'm talking about with the example, with the extra saturated fats within all this, within your medium chain oils. It is getting firmer, easier, and it's not as easy as I'm manipulating that with my finger to really fill in any of these holes. Now, some of these holes are not too bad. Some of them are very bad. Like they are just big, big pockets of just voids, just empty, dead space. See there? Like it's not good. And so that one's great. There's so much going on here, and it kind of looks like lips. So I think that's the one that I'm going to use for the test, so we know that it's the same batch. You know what I mean? But anyway, so with all of this, as I said, putting that coconut milk in it, big benefits are going to be you have the extra inclusion of all of your saturated fats, your medium fatty acid chains, lots more fat content. So it should be a big, beautiful lather. Downsides are going to be that, yeah, it does create a mess within your lye solution. So absolutely add it in, add trace would be my recommendation. So you have an easy, soaping experience. Color, as you can see, none problems. It went from a very bright orange solution to a very lovely beige colored soap. I did not add anything for colorant within any of this, save the kaolin clay. And so you can, as we've shown a lot before, you can just go ahead and know that your soap is going to become, a lighter color, even though the lye solution looks weird, if you choose to go the lye solution route. That said, tomorrow's soap is not at all the case. That's definitely a soap that's going to stay dark because of the lye solution. But I will show you that tomorrow. That's tomorrow's. For now, let's test these coconut milk soaps and see what we think of the lather. And I'm really excited to show you guys because I love this lather. So let's get to this. We actually are testing this 2 days after a pour. So it's, there you go. Here's your little mouth thingy. Totally looks like a mouth. There you go. And I have my beautiful camera person, Soap and Clay Kidlet #1, helping me out with all of this. And right off the bat, as soon as you get water on it, you can see the bubbles starting to form, which is going to be true of soaps that have a good amount of your, well, obviously, because we have the coconut and everything within it. But as I continue to manipulate this bar, it's where the medium fatty acid chains are really shining, and it's starting to create a lather that really holds up on its own. The bubbles in and of themselves, instant bubble payoff, which is a requirement for all of my soaps. If it doesn't start lathering immediately, it is a fail. And also, as you continue to manipulate it, you see how this soap starts to become very thick, has almost a foamy consistency to it. And if you're putting that onto a leg or a head or a face for shaving, it becomes a gorgeous, really beautiful lather that's going to mimic essentially a a shaving cream. And I'm going to, just put this all on the bar so you can see what exactly I'm talking about with the foaminess of it, how it's holding up so beautifully on its own. Absolutely stunning. 10 out of 10. This is a beautiful soap, even though we had a weird and wild journey. So if you end up with weird soap lye solutions like this because you put the coconut in the wrong place or whatever, fear not. Do it anyway, because the end result is that. Just know that your soap batter is going to be super duper thick. So that lye solution, insane. It was the craziest thing ever. And actually, there were some sudsers that had mentioned that in the comments of a different video that they had tried coconut milk and it became just one big gelatinous mess. And I'm like, yeah, same buddy, same. And they ultimately threw their lye solution out. I did not. I wanted to show you what happens. Ultimately, is this still a safe bar to use? Of course it is. That extra fat content within all of this is what is causing the big gelatinous mess within the actual lye solution, because effectively a lot of that has saponified. Does that mean that there's not enough lye in the solution to do anything with the oils that you have for your regular batch? Of course not. We just watched it become soap. Does that mean that you should use it within your lye solution as opposed to your oils? I would actually, for coconut milk, if you're going from a canned, recommend putting the milk in either the oil phase or in your traced batter stage and kind of keep it out of the lye solution in totality, just so you don't have to deal with that big glob of mess. As you can see, my soap got really thick really quickly. Two things were at play there. One, the big blob of the coconut milk in the lye solution, but two, I soaked this hot. Now, when you do it that way, as you can see with the finished product, you're going to end up with a lot of holes, a lot of just pockets where the soap doesn't actually tamp down. You're going to end up with very, very thick soap batter. So I do recommend actually including your coconut milk in probably the batters. It's going to give you a lot of an extra super fat within all of that, because again, anywhere from like 20 to 40% fat content within a canned coconut milk, it's going to be a pretty high super fat. So also keep that in mind when you are formulating your recipes. Is there anything wrong with a high super fat? No. As you can see with that lather, gorgeous. This is a wonderful inclusion for shave soaps, for sure. And we're talking about shaving the face, shaving the legs, all of the shaving that you could do. This is going to be beautiful. Puck forms of solid shave soaps sell very, very well for my company, for Soap and Clay. And I'm sure that would also be the case for you in your business. So definitely consider doing a coconut milk addition to a shave soap for that extra beautiful lather. It's very gorgeous. It's very thick. It really stands up on itself, but it's still creamy and not overly drying because of the saturated fat content. So definitely try that out for sure. What did you guys think? Was that crazy? It was crazy. I know. I know. It was absolutely nuts. But I had a great time with this, and it made me want to do a couple other videos of all of this because I did play with some milks, some cow's milks in alternate varieties as well. And so that's what we will be working with tomorrow. I'm going to show you how I fared with evaporated milk, tell you what the difference with that is from regular vitamin D milk and why it's really even, I think, crazier than this particular one. So, like, subscribe, bell, all the things, so you can be notified when that happens. That would be awesome. And for the Sudsers who do all of that, hey, you're awesome. Thank you for existing. Thank you for being you. Thank you for being my people. You guys are excellent. I know there's a lot going on right now. You guys are just cooking with gas with all of the different booth events and all the sales and everything that you have going on this summer. So I hope everyone is finding time for their self-care, all of the jazz. I'm going to go. I do not have time for self-care today. We are going to be working on the roof as well as getting everything ready because I'm taking the kidlets to the Ren Fair tomorrow. So that's going to be awesome. So come back tomorrow where I will have a video, but I won't, I got to film it today because I'm going to the Ren Fair, and we'll do another round of soapy fun. Bye.